I'm Ellen Mary.
And I'm Michael Perry.
And he's a plant geek.
And she's a plant addict.
And this is the Plant-Based Podcast.
This is more than just a gardening podcast. We'll be exploring the world of plants from every possible angle. We'll be talking about plant-based diets, plant materials and fabrics, the well-being qualities of plants, and giving plenty of gardening tips and tricks.
So we'll be chatting worldwide to companies and individuals that are being creative with plants in new and exciting ways. From fabulous flower crowns to foliage-filled lounges.
Botanical moisturizers to bamboo clothing.
It's all here.
And it's all made of plants.
So today I am at the University of North Carolina Botanical Gardens with Jeff Gillman, who is the director here. So welcome, Jeff, to our plant-based podcast.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
It's more than a total pleasure. And just for our listeners, we're sitting in a kind of education room with lots of cases of books all around. So as you can imagine, I'm very, very happy about that. I just kind of want to delve into all of them. What can I see? Conifers, bulbs, begonias.
Well, we've got our David Fairchild books up there. David Fairchild has some of the best stuff. Plant exploration, early in this not this century anymore. Early in the 1900s, late in the 1800s. We've got some books over there on a wide variety of plants, but my favorite are also the Liberty Hyde Bailey books, if you know L.H. Bailey. Before you leave today, I will show you some of these books. We actually have some books in here that are pretty fantastic.
Amazing.
And I do want to make one, I shouldn't say a correction, but I want to make one point. This is actually not what we call the University of North Carolina Botanical Gardens. This is the University of North Carolina at Charlotte Botanical Gardens. Because there are a few different University of North Carolinas, and they all have their own botanical gardens.
So there's lots of botanical gardens around here.
There are a few. And you visit a lot of botanical gardens. There is no best. We like to think of ourselves as a very important one, but there is no best. They're all just very, very different.
Yeah.
I would say that we're certainly one of the most eclectic botanical gardens.
Okay. Why is that? Why eclectic?
Well, our director emeritus, Larry Mellichamp, was at different times in his career an expert in many different plants.
Okay.
We don't have a huge orchid collection, but we have an incredibly diverse orchid collection. He was into orchids for a number of years. We have an incredible grouping of carnivorous plants because he was into carnivorous plants for a lot of time. In fact, we have some carnivorous plants that he actually bred. Some pitcher plants that he named. One's named Fat Albert. He gave them weird names, but they're hybrids between different species of pitcher plants.
Okay.
Very neat.
Fat Albert.
Yeah, the Fat Albert.
Plant.
In fact, I think we have one that hasn't gone completely dormant yet. So if you want to see it,
yes, definitely.
I'll show you the Fat Albert pitcher plant. And he also was into native plants for a good bit of his career, so we actually have what's known as the Mellichamp Native Terrace, which is our most recently built large garden, which has just a huge number of plants native to the Carolinas.
Wow. Okay, so I came here back in 2018, which is when we first met, and you kindly gave me a tour of the gardens, which was fantastic. It was August, it was scorching hot, the campus was pretty much closed, so there was barely anyone around. It was stunning. So now I'm here at the end of January. It's a bit cold and quite busy, but I'm still really looking forward to having a look around today, actually, just to see how different it is.
Absolutely. A lot of things are dormant, obviously, but you'll also be able to see things in a way that's, you get to see the structure of a lot of the trees in a way that's different than what you saw in August for sure.
Yeah, but I love that. I actually love seeing the structure, and I love seeing the textures and the seed heads and kind of everything sleeping before it's about to burst.
Well, there's a whole different feeling. I mean, Fleetwood Mac, right?
Yeah.
Fleetwood Mac, bare trees.
Yeah.
Gray sky.
Absolutely.
It's a whole different feel.
I love Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah, me too.
Do you know, that's made me want to listen to a bit of Fleetwood Mac.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Rumors is the greatest album ever made. Okay. Just so we're clear.
We're learning about you here now. Which leads us on. Just to get to know you a little bit better.
Sure.
So where did your love of plants start in the first place?
My love of plants didn't start with plants.
Okay.
It actually really started with insects. I've been fascinated with insects since I was a junior in high school, around 16, 17 years old. I went to basically a summer camp and worked with an entomologist and just thought it was amazing. So I went through, this was in Pennsylvania, for your listeners who know where Philadelphia is.
Yeah.
That's where I'm originally from.
Yeah.
Went to college, majored in biology, then went down to the University of Georgia and got a master's degree in entomology. While I was down there, I had the chance to meet Mike Durr, and some of your listeners will know Mike Durr as an extremely famous horticulturist who works on ornamental woody plants, and I thought that his work was absolutely amazing. I'm going to make a very long story very short and say that I decided to work with Dr. Durr for my PhD in horticulture, and thoroughly enjoyable, had a wonderful time, and that's where I really got connected with plants. I made my trips home, which I lived very close to Longwood Gardens.
Oh.
Made my trips home and visiting Longwood all that much more important.
Yeah.
I was very fortunate right out of my PhD program. I got a professorship at the University of Minnesota. Spent 15 years there, but it was a little bit too cold. so then I headed down to UNC and...
for the heat. I mean,
heat.
You've literally gone from really cold to really hot.
Well, my wife, so I did my graduate degrees at the University of Georgia, so I knew what it was like. And that's where I met my wife, who's actually from Charleston.
Okay.
So she really wanted to get back to the warm, and I certainly wanted to get warmer. So she was very happy to come back south, and so was I. And being the director of Botanical Garden is just about the coolest job that you can possibly imagine. Every day, if I have a tough day, all I need to do is walk out there and take a walk along the trails, and I feel so much better. So just neat job.
You literally couldn't agree more with that. And I was actually going to ask you, so obviously as director, your role is... it must be so varied. There must be an educational aspect, an admin aspect, or an HR aspect, lots of indoor stuff. So do you actually get to go outside?
I make sure that I get out and walk through the gardens at least once a day. Usually that walk is in the morning.
Yeah.
When I first come in, I get
Lovely
in.
start to the day.
It is. It's great. I come in around 7 o'clock. Well, between 7 and 8. It depends. I want to say I always get in at 7.
All your employees will say, no, he doesn't.
That's right. They'll come, and then I walk through the gardens in the morning, and it is a great way to start the day. I am mostly an administrator now, which is frustrating at times, but I'm very fortunate to have an amazing group of people to work with. We have people who are in charge of education. We have people who are in charge of the indoor gardens, people in charge of the outdoor gardens. And when you have a great group, it's very easy to delegate tasks. I try not to be a micromanager, but that said, I must admit that there are certainly certain things that that are pet projects. And later on we'll talk about the podcast. Hey, the podcast is mine. Nobody else touches it.
There's no one else
Me
allowed
having
to have
fun.
anything to do with it. This is mine.
That's right. I shouldn't.
You're allowed. You're allowed.
We all need our pet projects. I think it's very important to have your pet project.
Yeah, I quite agree. Going back to what you were saying about going outside and it just making you feel better, there's so much more about that now, isn't there? In England especially, we're really pushing forward with this connection between nature and well-being and plants and how important they are. Basically it's a case of life or death without them. But on the scale of a day-to-day going outside and breathing in the fresh air and looking at the greenery and connecting yourself with the natural world, it's quite big now in England, which is great because it's so important. Is that the same here?
I'd say that it's getting better. It's not as big as it should be, but we certainly are dealing with a whole lot of groups, I'll say, that want to come out here on a regular basis and experience the outdoors to reconnect. And I think that's wonderful. As you said, look, without the plants, we're all dead.
Yeah.
So let's appreciate them while we can.
Yeah.
It's getting bigger. It's not where it should be. I actually had the chance to go to the UK, specifically Ireland, this past year, and I would say that you guys are doing a better job than we are right now, but I hope that we catch up.
Yeah, I hope you catch up too, for everybody's sake, because it's super important. It's most enjoyable, and it's actually lovely to watch people kind of make that connection. And sometimes, I know we do need to reconnect with nature because we have kind of stepped back and lost it, but I often say it isn't even just about reconnecting, it's even bigger than that. It's about remembering that we are nature. We are nature. You know, we are another species that are alive on this planet, and everything we do is connected.
I think that's very well put, and I agree 100%.
Cool.
Okay.
So, I know that you've written lots of books, and you've mentioned your podcast as well.
Yeah.
So tell us about those projects that you enjoy kind of outside of the university too.
Sure. Well, I'd love to talk about that, but if I could back up just a little bit. When I first started graduate school, I was very much interested in being a researcher. I'm actually pretty much an introvert. Yeah, I'm not actually enjoying speaking with you right now. I'm kidding.
Podcast over for today.
I'm one of these people. I actually really don't enjoy big groups. It takes a lot out of me, and this was especially true when I was younger. But as I moved from being a graduate student to a professor, I had a role in something called extension. You've probably heard of extension. You don't know what extension is?
No, I don't think so.
So at all of our land-grant universities, and if you don't know what that is, it's okay, places like the University of Georgia, Penn State, University of Minnesota, North Carolina State. I'm just listing some land-grant institutions.
Okay.
There's one or two per state. They have a very specific set of guidelines where they have to do research, they have to do teaching, and they have to do something called extension.
Right.
Extension is taking the research done at the university and at other universities and getting it into the community. And so when you're a professor at one of these institutions, especially in the sciences, you actually have an assignment to do a certain percentage of teaching, a certain percentage of research, and a certain percentage of extension. My role in extension was very high, and it was something that at first I could say that I almost resented. But by the end of my time as a professor, it was what I lived for.
Right.
Was taking the research done at University of Minnesota and other institutions and transmitting it to people. And it's something that I just grew to love. And that's what my books are. And that's I do. I'm a contributing editor to Fine Gardening magazine. I write articles for them. I've written 5 books, or I've authored or co-authored 5 books, is what I say. And by the end of my time at the University of Minnesota, I no longer enjoyed writing a research article that 3 people would read and appreciate. What I enjoyed was writing an article based on research that either I or other people didn't really matter, that would reach thousands of people who would actually care about it. So that's how my career has gone, into things that really matter, that can actually affect people's behavior, so that they do things not only that help them, but that help the environment. So that's what I've come to enjoy. That's why I do books. That's why I do the podcast. The podcast is my new favorite thing to do.
Because you're reaching out to people.
Exactly.
And you're making that connection with the knowledge that you know and what you've got, and you're passing that on to other people.
Exactly. When I get an email from, we've received emails from all over the world and the United States telling us about the things that we've talked about. And they're so wonderful to get. And the ones that I enjoy the most, I'm at an age now where I really don't care about being criticized anymore. Criticize me all you want, whatever. I love the ones that say, hey, I actually grew up in Jordan or wherever, and we've eaten this food, and you were wrong on this, this, and this, and you should really say this, this, and this. And it's wonderful. We love that. And then in the next podcast, we say, hey, we got this letter, and hey, we were wrong on this. And it's so much fun to interact with the public.
I think that's super interesting, actually, what you said, because often people who come into horticulture or they want to start enjoying gardening, they can feel a little bit scared because they don't know a word or a name of a plant, or they might look stupid. Mm-hmm. But you can't, because even who we would class as the experts get it wrong, because there is so much. It's never ending education, is it? You will learn for the rest of your life. Every day you learn something new, and it's actually great to hear that you get it wrong sometimes.
Absolutely. I look back at the first couple of books I published. In fact, every single one of my books has some mistakes that I'm extremely aware of. And no, I'm not going to tell you what they are.
I've got one of your books.
And it has mistakes in it. Everybody makes mistakes in books, and one of the worst things that an academic can do is to say, I'm right, and defend a point that they know is wrong.
Yeah.
If I'm wrong, I'm going to say that I'm wrong. And in horticulture, it manifests faster, more obviously than anywhere. L.H. Bailey, basically the father of modern horticulture, he called horticulture the art and science of growing plants, and it is the art and science. This isn't all science. We're not there yet. So let's appreciate that there's still an art that we have to play with. Never be afraid of being wrong.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. Where can we listen to your podcast?
So, iTunes is always the easiest place, but we're on just about any platform. The podcast is called The Plants We Eat. It actually, I don't think, has my name on it right now. I think it's called UNC Charlotte Botanical Gardens. Okay. But again, go to The Plants We Eat, and please take a listen. And every week, we talk about a different plant that we eat. We've talked about everything from prickly pear cactus to saffron to mad honey, which is one of my favorites, to grapes and bananas. All kinds of interesting stuff, or stuff that I consider interesting. Since we're talking about the podcast, can I tell you what we're going to be doing soon?
Go for it.
All
absolutely,
right.
Yes.
So I've convinced my co-host, Cindy. I've convinced her that for the next 4 podcasts, and this will be coming out, this will probably be end of February before you see this. For the next 4 podcasts, we're going to do the bugs we eat, and we're going to be doing crickets.
It's making me vomit a little.
We're going to be doing crickets and mealworms. We'll also be doing silkworm pupa. I've eaten those before. They're very good, actually. And the 4th one I haven't quite decided on. It may be bamboo worms, but I don't know yet.
Bamboo worms?
Yeah, bamboo worms. Yeah, they're really big, thick larvae. And,
I feel slightly queasy.
Well, we're going to start off with the crickets. And the reason we'll start off with the crickets is because I think that it's important, especially for Cindy. So, you remember that my master's degree is in entomology.
Yes, of course.
As a person going into entomology, very few of us didn't eat insects at some time. It starts off kind of as a hazing, and then it kind of ends up as a whatever, it's an insect, who cares? And that's where I am at this stage in my life. For those of you who know what scrapple is, I started, growing up in Philadelphia, I had scrapple early on, so eating disgusting things is not new to me. Do you know what scrapple is? No. Never mind. We'll talk about this later.
I don't know if I want to know.
I'll make it simple. Scrapple is all the pieces that they won't put into sausage.
Oh, no.
And so, eating strange things was never odd to me. I went into entomology. There's the whole, as I said, hazing with the different insects, and then I got to the point it didn't matter. So eating all these insects doesn't really matter to me, but I know that Cindy has not tried insects in any real way. So we're going to start off very simple. And the easiest way to eat insects is actually to get cricket flour. That's actually crickets that have been processed into a type of flour. Then you put them into a chocolate chip cookie. It's a high-protein, low-carb chocolate chip cookie that's actually delicious. It doesn't taste that much different than a regular chocolate chip cookie. It's a very easy way. I mean, you wouldn't have any trouble eating it, and if I gave it to you without telling you, which I wouldn't do, you wouldn't have a problem eating it because
you wouldn't know.
You wouldn't know.
Okay.
And the flavor and everything, just the same.
I'm gonna read every cookie packet I ever read now.
But then you go from that to your actual crickets, and then you go from your actual crickets to something like your silkworm pupa soup, where you can actually see these silkworm pupa floating around in your soup. And
just for listeners, I'd like you to know I'm sitting here with my chin on the floor.
And I will confirm your chin, in fact, you've taken on a bit of a green pallor. And I hope that you feel better soon.
Thank you. Shall we take a break at this point before we do the second half of the podcast, where we'll find out more about the Botanic Gardens?
That'll be fine.
Ellen Mary.
You go back.
Ellen Mary is my name. Loads of people call me Mary Ellen. Honestly, don't be sorry. So many people, especially in America.
My mother's name is Mary Ellen.
Oh, really? Honestly, I think maybe in America I'll call myself Mary Ellen, and in the UK I'll call myself Ellen Mary.
So bad.
No, don't feel
Ellen
bad.
Mary.
Ellen Mary or
okay.
Ellen, but Mary Ellen's usually not but I have noticed that that's more.
It's a very American double name.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
So for me, that just reminds me of the Waltons, because that's in England. That's all we ever really knew.
That's right.
Yeah.
I
Anyway.
forgot about that.
Okay. Let's go. Okay. Okay, so back to part 2. Now I've recovered from the chat about eating crickets.
We're about to put you in a spot again, but that's okay.
So now Jeff has given me some candy.
Yeah.
Which is durian fruit.
That is durian fruit candy. So this is, with the podcast, what we do is we actually taste all of the different foods that we relate. On air. So one of our recent podcasts was durian. Instead of taking a durian fruit into the studio, because that would stink up the studio for everybody else, we got some durian candy. I have had durian fruit as is. It is not as nasty as they say it is, but it is somewhat nasty. That candy that you have in your hand actually tastes very, very much like durian, just slightly sweeter because, it's
So not
candy.
very nice.
Well, you see what you think.
Okay, so it's...
Would you? So I can tell you how other people have described it and see if you go along with this. They describe it kind of as a slightly rotten onion with a bit of old sock.
Did you want to continue this podcast?
What do you think? Now I'm curious.
I've never tasted old sock, so
Yeah.
I can definitely taste sort of oniony.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can smell it over here, by the way.
Oh my gosh. I'm not going to speak to anyone for the rest of the day. It does taste a bit like, I would say it's kind of like the taste of shallots.
Yes.
Sort of that sort of sweeter onion flavour.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not great. Do people really eat this?
Yes, and some people really like them. If somebody served this to me, I would eat it again so as not to be rude, but it's nothing I would ever look out for.
My breath smells really bad now.
Yes, it does. I can smell it over here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Shall we move on?
This is an educational podcast, and I'm trying to do my part. I take this whole extension role seriously. I try and transfer research-based information, and your research on this has now been transferred to the podcast audience. You have done something important today.
I can't even speak.
You can stick it in there.
Do you know, it's quite mean, because Michael, who is obviously the other half of this podcast, he also makes me eat things that are revolting. Once he tricked me into downing a shot of vinegar.
Oh, yeah.
I was so ill.
Was that after you had some of the miracle fruit?
After the miracle berry, that's correct.
Yeah.
I'm just going to remove this from my mouth, okay?
Please do. While you're doing that, I'll say that on the podcast, we do try and, taste all of the various foods that we do on the show. The durian was perhaps the most interesting, but we also taste everything from millet flour to, let me see, what else did we try that was really interesting? Durian was definitely the top of the list.
Yeah, that's pretty disgusting. I don't recommend anyone try it.
So you went from thinking that it was at least palatable to disgusting.
It was kind of, when I first tasted it, it was sort of a little bit sweet. I could get the oniony flavour, but it was okay. But then the more... Oh, no. And actually, the flavour it's left in my mouth is even worse.
Actually, I do have another one for you to try that I'll bet you've never tried before.
Not if it's disgusting.
I promise that this is ever so much better.
Or if it's a cricket. No.
No.
Where is it? No.
Have you ever tried a cactus?
No.
Prickly pear?
Oh, yes, I have. Actually, I quite like prickly pear.
Okay. Would you like to try a prickly pear candy?
And I've never had a candy.
A prickly pear candy.
This is very exciting. The podcast is turning into eating some random stuff from Jeff's bag. I don't know why everyone experiments on me with this stuff. Oh, this is in a really lovely box.
It's called cactus candy.
Cactus candy?
Yeah, please give it a shot.
It looks a little bit like jelly, and it's
certainly
sugary and sweet. I like that.
Yeah.
That's got rid of the flavour of the durian candy, so...
Well, there you go.
Thank you. So I'm currently eating a chunk of prickly pear candy.
You did not know the experience that you were in for.
No, I really didn't, but I really like this.
Well, good.
I can remember eating it. So where were we? I think we were in Italy, and we were on a farm. There was tons of prickly pear, and they used a burner to get rid of the spines on it, peeled it, and then we're just eating it fresh.
Right. We did that on the show as well.
Okay.
The candy is actually for the next show. As you saw, we've only eaten one so far. But for the next show, we're going to be eating the prickly pear candy.
This is good.
Good. I'm glad that you like it.
I'm really pleased you've redeemed yourself after the jury. Thank you. Anyway, whilst I finish this, why don't you tell our listeners about the history of the Botanic Gardens here?
Well, I'd love to. So the Botanical Gardens, brief history of this university. This university was started by Bonnie Cone in the 1940s, and it was started as a place for servicemen to go at the end of the war. About 20 years after the beginning of this university, the Botanical Gardens were started. So about 1966. We had our 50-year anniversary in 2016. So 1966, this garden was started. It was actually started with money from the Rhododendron Society of Charlotte. Now, here's the thing. Rhododendrons do not grow well here in Charlotte, but most of our garden is actually in a valley where it's a bit cooler, so we were able to keep a number of rhododendrons and azaleas down there. As most of you know, rhododendrons and azaleas are extremely closely associated with each other. Now, with the rhododendrons and azaleas, at one time, not anymore, but at one time, we actually had 6,000 different types. Not 6,000 plants, but literally 6,000 different types of rhododendrons and azaleas. We're down to about 1,000 now, but we still have quite an amazing rhododendron and azalea collection.
Why the decline? Why so few?
Basically, since rhododendrons do so poorly in this area, we simply didn't keep them up. Because of the history of this garden, we will always have a reasonable collection of rhododendrons, but it seems a waste to concentrate on a plant that doesn't fare well in this spot. So,
I do always believe you need to work with what you've got, the soil you've got, the conditions you've got, work with it, don't try and fight against it.
And besides, you realize that when you have this concentration of rhododendrons and azaleas, and actually mountain laurels, all of which are closely related, all of your honey is toxic. Did you know that?
No.
So you need to listen to our episode on mad honey. Most of your mad honey comes out of Turkey. But actually, when bees use as their primary source of nectar rhododendrons and azaleas, they actually concentrate a toxin in it, and it actually makes it into a mild hallucinogen, basically a narcotic.
Really?
Yeah. So it's kind of neat.
Wow.
Look up mad honey.
That's actually really cool. I mean, information.
Yeah. Let's all get high on mad honey.
I didn't mean that, but yeah.
I actually have a friend over in the English department who studies old English literature, and he actually found a reference, which we have yet to confirm, which reported a large amount of mad honey being shipped to England from Turkey to be used mixing into beer to make it more potent.
Go English!
The English have always been on top of that.
Clearly.
Anyway, so what happened after that is that's 7 acres of our gardens. We have 10 acres. After that, 7 acres was developed. We then developed 3 acres known as the Harwood Garden, which is much more planned garden. The Glen, which is the rhododendron area, is a much more natural garden. The Harwood Garden is much more planned garden with a lot of more introduced plants. Then that was in the 70s. Then in the 80s, we had this greenhouse installed here. This greenhouse is actually a production greenhouse which was converted into a conservatory greenhouse in the late 80s, early 90s. So it's great for people to walk through. The problem is that since it was created as a production greenhouse, it gets tight in spots.
Okay.
And the history, earlier in the podcast I mentioned that we have a bunch of great collection based on what our director emeritus was studying at the time. It's very obvious as you go through the gardens, almost his timeline in the gardens with the different sections different plant materials in the different sections.
That's nice, though, isn't it? It's nice
It is.
for some, that's someone's stamp on it and their personal.
It makes me happy, and it's interesting. I was very fortunate to come in here with a lot of mature plant materials, and that was wonderful. And a lot of my work hasn't been bringing in plant materials. There's very little need for that. My work has been connecting this garden with people. So that's been my drive, but it's my passion.
It's one of the most important things in the world to do, is
Thank
to
you.
connect plants with people.
Thank you, and that's our motto, actually.
Is it?
Yes.
Oh, well, there we go.
So you just said it for me. Thank you.
Can you make sure you never have durian in any motto ever, or don't give that to your students or any people who visit?
I don't usually make promises I can't keep, but I'm going to give that to you as a
Okay,
promise. As long as I'm here, durian will not be in our motto. Prickly pear, perhaps, but not durian.
The prickly pear, nice, but now I've finished that, I can still taste the durian candy, so
I'm sorry.
Anyway, so just tell us a little bit about kind of the soil here in North Carolina and the atmospheric conditions for growing. How do, you saying that, rhododendrons and azaleas don't do so well, why is that?
So that's because the Carolinas are hot.
Yeah.
And the rhododendron is really a plant that needs its cool. Up in the mountains of North Carolina actually works quite well.
Okay.
The Carolinas, North Carolina alone, but let's include South Carolina, an extremely diverse environment going from mountainous all the way down to coastal plain against the ocean. And there are unique flora, unique plants along that entire range. Some of the most unique, you had mentioned previously, I think actually between spots, like we're going to start talking about some natives. Let me tell you a little bit about the natives here,
yes,
if I
please,
could.
definitely.
Because they're crazy. We have native rhododendrons up in the mountains.
Yeah.
But down near the shore, we have some of the most unique natives that you can imagine. A lot of people don't realize that the Venus Flytrap is native to one place in the whole world, and that's North and partially South Carolina. Venus flytrap, everybody knows it. Just the coolest plant.
Yeah, everybody knows a Venus flytrap.
Right.
It doesn't matter if you're interested in plants or not. Everybody knows that one plant.
And these areas where the Venus flytrap lives are very low in nutrients in the soil. So plants have had to develop ways to get nutrients, and a lot of them have utilized insects. Not just the Venus flytrap, but also the pitcher plants and sundews.
Yeah.
These are all native to North Carolina.
That's amazing.
Isn't it? The bogs in the eastern part of North Carolina, and again South Carolina, just have this incredible diversity of plant materials that are made to deal with these insects. Get nutrients from somewhere besides the soil. So very, very cool.
Michael and I have a plan for around about June to actually go and see if we can hunt some.
Do you want... Now, you realize you can't take them out?
Oh, absolutely. Okay. We would never do that, but we want to go and see them and just, finding them in the wild will be just so
If you'd
exciting.
like some, we do always sell some here. We always make sure we have some in stock.
Okay.
And, slightly unrelated, but I do have an extra piece of durian candy if Michael would like it.
Yes, let's do it.
Okay.
I'm sure he'll love it. It wasn't as bad as I said it was. Michael, honestly, I'm sure you'll enjoy it.
I don't think you should let him listen to this before before you give it to him.
That will definitely get him back for the vinegar that he made me drink.
The miracle fruit is a cool thing, though.
Oh, isn't it cool? It's amazing. It's so good.
We actually have that plant back there somewhere.
Do you?
And it does produce the fruit. So we don't do the fruit from tablets. I know a lot of people take the tablet.
Yeah.
We actually take the fruit right off the tree and eat them.
It's incredible.
The fruit itself is kind of tasty, fresh.
I think it's tasty. We had the fruit. For anyone listening, if you didn't know, what had happened or what the miracle berry is, it basically changes your taste. So anything that's quite sour will taste really, really sweet. And we done a little bit of an experiment where Michael and I had the miracle berries, and we had a miracle berry, and then what did we had a pickle, we had a strawberry, we had vinegar, which actually tasted really sweet and nice, but at the end of the day it's still vinegar and literally burnt my insides. I can't remember what else we had now, but it's incredible. And I'm surprised it's not used more, actually.
Me too. It's good stuff. We actually had Sour Patch Kids, and I had exactly the same experience with the vinegar, by the way.
Did you?
Which is that I ate the fruit, and then I took a swallow of vinegar. Yeah. And if I'd left it at that little swallow, it all would have been good.
Yeah.
But instead, I took basically half a glass and said, look at this. And that gave me heartburn.
Yeah, I was very unwell for the rest of the night. But anyway, so carnivorous plants, very exciting. I'm really looking forward to going to find them. I had already actually read that they're endangered, and over the years people had obviously taken some, and that's one of the reasons why, amongst many others. So yeah, we would definitely not do that. But
if you want to buy them at any point, we do pride ourselves in keeping a nice selection for sale. In fact, probably as good as anybody in terms of selling them. We don't do a lot of plant sales. We do like event plant sales, but we don't sell plants throughout the year except for the carnivorous plants, because people kind of count on us for getting those weird carnivorous plants.
Might have to walk away with one. Do you have a fat Albert though?
We don't have a fat Albert, but we do have B-52. Do you know what a B-52?
B-52, as in the aeroplane B-52, or B-52. There's a band B-52, there's also a cocktail B-52.
I was going to say the cocktail. The Kahlua Baileys and Grand Marnier.
That's the one.
Yes, it's quite good. Anyway, if you know plants, you also have to know drinks. That's very important. B-52 is actually the cultivar of the largest Venus Flytrap.
Okay.
So if you get a B-52 Venus Flytrap, that means it's got a really big mouth, so to speak. We actually have had one of those eat a lizard.
Whoa.
I've got a picture of it somewhere. It's just incredible.
Wow. So. Very exciting. So apart from
the things that excite plant people.
I know, honestly. A plant that eats a lizard. Yay! That's not good. That's not good. Here, obviously, you've mentioned about your carnivorous plants, that you have a sale, and you have a collection here too, which is, I actually did see many of those in the August that I came before. I know obviously many will be dormant now, but it looked fantastic just outside the greenhouse here. Do you have any other standout plants here at the garden that you want to shout about? Is there anything that people come here to see, or something that you particularly love?
Well, certainly we have certain orchids which are really cool. We have a Darwin's orchid, if you're familiar with Darwin's orchid. It's an orchid that Darwin saw in Madagascar and predicted, based on its long pollen tube, that it would attract a night-flying moth with a proboscis about 8 inches to 10 inches long.
Wow.
So it's a really cool orchid. They discovered that moth 2 years after he died. So that's very cool. We are the first in the Carolinas to bloom a titanarum, so we have a number of titanarums.
Do you?
We grow them from seed.
Something else smelly.
Yes, we're into smelly plants. We have one of what I think is the most incredible flowers ever. It's understated, and you can't appreciate until you actually see it. It's called the grass of Parnassus.
Okay.
It's another bog plant, so it's only grown in special bog gardens like those that we have, especially here, so we can show off the Venus flytraps and pitcher plants.
Sure.
Look up grass of Parnassus. The veins in the flower are, you've never seen anything like it until you see it in person. On the web, you'll get kind of an idea, but until you see it in person, you can't fully appreciate. So we do have a few plants that are very special here.
I do remember, actually, when I was here before, walking around the greenhouse, and there was some school children here, obviously having time out and coming and have a look around and learning about plants. And they're very interested in the smells and the tastes, aren't they? Because that's kind of really what makes them connect.
Yes.
And I can't remember, I think there was a pepper. You had a pepper plant? I can't remember what it was.
I think I had you eat one of the peppers from the pepper tree.
I vaguely remember that now, actually.
We might have some out there now if you want.
I don't know if I want to eat anything. Excuse me.
You're never going to trust me again.
No, basically.
At least you're honest about it.
So, thank you so much for having me here today.
My pleasure. Thank you for coming.
I love the gardens here. I'm going to take a walk around now, if that's good with you, and see a different time of year to before. But it's really exciting, and I do love how your passion for plants, for you, the passion is about the people and the plants, and that's so important,
Well, it's not just me, it's the whole staff, and we're all invested here, not just in having cool plants that nobody's ever going to see, but in having plants and pulling in people to come and see them. And thank you for being a part of us getting that message out.
It's an absolute pleasure. So make sure, if you're listening at home, to check out the UNC podcast.
UNC Charlotte?
Called UNC Charlotte podcast called The Plants You Eat.
The Plants We Eat.
The Plants We Eat.
The Plants We Eat.
Well, not me, because
you'll never trust me again.
I'm not going to be eating half of those plants. But thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Everybody, never eat durian fruit.
I'm gonna just press record.
I pressed record, so you're now being recorded.
Such a geek.
Such a geek.
What's going on, girl? I like your top. It looks really cute. What's it say? Love?
It says love. Yeah. That's because I am a lover, not a
You're gonna cut
fighter.
that out, aren't you? I can tell already.
What did it say?
Anyway,
Love? No.
gossip away.
Well, you're actually just laying in bed, so...
I'm laying in bed in a chapel, can I point out?
Yeah, it does look really amazing.
I got the swankiest Airbnb in the West. Oh.
Are we allowed to know
Ellen,
what part of the country you're in, or is that a secret?
I'm in Essex. I think I'm in Essex, somewhere near the border. But aren't you? How's your How to Be an American series going?
It's an interesting experience.
Yeah. Okay.
It's good
and
fun.
would you naturally say trash now or rubbish?
No. The only thing I've had to say, which I don't know what this is about, but if I speak to somebody who says, "Oh, where are you from?" and I say the UK, for some reason I start speaking like the Queen's English, even more so.
I did the same when I was in the US.
Why is that? I don't know. So it's almost like I refuse to say any American words, but there are some that you basically have to, or you won't get what you want.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Well, it is. I think we're always a bit snobbish as English people, but actually it is another language technically.
Yeah.
And you sometimes have to use another language to communicate with people in other countries.
It's English American at the end of the day, and that's how it is. And I'm here in America, so I should respect that, definitely. But I've noticed things that some of the things that really do make me laugh are the word that's the same word. So we say water, and if I ask for water, the amount of people who say "huh," like they don't get. I'm like, water, So I have had to say water, and they're like, "Oh, you mean water?" I was like, "Yeah, this is the same word."
I think it's because they're just dazzled by the English accent, and they almost assume that they won't understand anything that comes out of that English accent now. But I used to really ham up the English as well, because you already then feel a bit special. You know that they're kind of like, gagging for this English accent, so you make it even more pronounced,
It's just silly. I've just noticed doing that, and
we're just toying with the Americans.
We're just playing. It's good fun.
Dangling a language carrot in front of their nose.
And obviously, there's some of the food or plants, eggplant. There's no point ever saying aubergine. There's no point ever saying coriander. Obviously, that's cilantro, and then. There's no point saying rocket, that's arugula. So things like that, that you just... Scallions is one I hadn't really known, which is spring onion.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah. When you're
I
ordering.
think scallions I think that's slightly different, though. Isn't that more of an actual leaf onion? I think a spring onion is still a separate thing, though.
I'm pretty sure that when we've had scallions, it's been spring onion, but maybe...
The actual thing. Okay.
Perhaps, yeah.
That's one to look up and research, young Ellen.
That's one to learn, yeah. But I refuse to do trash and vacation and route.
But route
instead of
how's
route.
Your project? So, are you working while you're there, or are you just sitting around picking your dirt out your fingernails?
Was I just doing that then?
I'm just imagining what you do when you're on your own.
With the severe lack of gardening that's happening, which I hate so much, I have actually got some lovely nails, the best nails I've had in ages. I've been doing a lot of work, yes. Every single day is basically work, and work, and then the odd garden visit or walk in between, because otherwise I don't get any chance to be with plants.
Are you keeping motivated though nicely?
Oh yeah. It's the start of the year. It's like the new year, isn't it? There's loads of stuff going on. It's like,
oh, you're so cheesy.
Why is that cheesy? It's true, and it's true.
I just find you immensely cheesy.
Why is that cheesy? It's exciting.
I heard that when people think you're weird when you walk to places.
Definitely. And I learnt that early on. I walked from where we are to Uptown, and it's about a mile or so.
Yeah.
And I looked so out of place. I mean,
really?
I never saw anybody else walking anywhere. People kind of looked at me, even crossing over, like, you know, at the crossings, the cars were sort of shocked there was someone crossing over. And I realised that I was going to really have to drive.
Just to not be shamed.
Not to be shamed, exactly. So is
that a walk of shame then?
You could call it that, I guess. Not that kind of walk of shame, though. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to getting back to the UK and being able to walk. Your hair is absolutely crazy, by the way.
I know, it's so long, but
what
when it gets so long, you get to the point where you can't turn back.
It's past your nose nearly when you pull it down.
It's like you'll probably eat it as well. But I got, like, potential for top knot, you know, everything. It's really... Like, I feel like I've got a lot more opportunities now my hair's longer.
Welcome.
In life, in career.
In everything,
Everything.
I don't find top knots acceptable.
No, very few people do.
Don't turn up to record a podcast with a top knot, because I'm going to take it out.
Oh, that sounded like a segue.
Okay, we can take it.
Why would we record a podcast, Ellen? Is that because we're planning series 3?
Now who's cheesy?
Yeah, what have you got to tell us, Ellen?
Why don't you have a launch date for said podcast? Why don't you tell us all about the podcast?
Well, I can't remember the date, so you'll have to tell me.
Oh, my gosh.
What is it? You don't even know, do you?
Early March. 6th of March?
Early March.
6th or 8th of March? The first Sunday. Anyway.
In March.
We will release series 3.
That's cool.
Very cool.
What's the first episode? Do you know? Do you remember?
Which is the first episode?
Yeah.
Well, I don't think we've actually arranged them in order.
Oh, we're not? Oh, God,
no.
we forgot we were recording live here, didn't we? We thought just casual chat.
This is what happens behind the scenes.
But a few of them planned already, obviously. We've got one with BAM, haven't we?
Yeah, we've got BAM clothing, which is super interesting, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And we're recording quite a few over the coming weeks too.
Yeah.
And we've got
collaborations.
We've got a new sponsor too, so it is super exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, new sponsor. We still we're not ready to announce, but it's very interesting because for me it ticks 2 very big boxes. It ticks obviously the vegan plant-based box, but also the gardening and horticulture box, which is quite unique. So I'm very excited about this particular sponsor for this series.
Me too, I agree. It's really cool. Really cool. So we will be able to tell everyone more in a couple of weeks, I guess.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, where have you been, Michael? What have you been up to? Oh, it's funny you should ask.
I did actually ask earlier, but you changed the subject, so you go ahead.
I had a really lovely time. You should come sometime to a trade show in Germany.
Essen.
Yeah, and saw some really cool new ideas, new concepts. A terrarium that was also a houseplant lamp. That was pretty cool. Some amazing new plants and different ways of using plants.
Are they all the plants that are going to be coming to market? Is that what the show is about? Or?
Yeah, pretty much. So you're kind of seeing them 2 in advance.
Okay.
Very often...
Oh, gosh, is this boring you?
And very often they make up concepts, you know, especially for the show. So it's almost a gauge reaction.
Right.
So with amaryllis bulbs, for example, they show some really amazing... so you remember the Innocent bottles had those knitted jackets on for a while?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they now have a similar thing for amaryllis bulbs. So they literally sit in this little knitted jacket, which is so cool. So it gives them obviously the support, and it's such a new concept, but it's not even, planned yet. It was there for reaction.
Do you plant them? Do you still plant them?
No, because they just kind of sit on the side with this little jacket on.
Okay, cute.
Yeah, it's alternative to waxing, because obviously waxing, a lot of people don't like with bulbs, and it kind of inhibits them a little bit. So really nice development. Also, cut flowers. They've got these little bouquets that fit into coffee cups, little coffee cup bouquets.
Right.
They're really nice. They're only a couple of inches. Really pretty.
So there's lots of more kind of innovative stuff for the year ahead.
Oh, definitely. Lots of new primroses, for example. Lots of new shrubs. Especially, I always talk about this concept, graffiti garden. Yeah. Which is using evergreen shrubs that have got, red, purple, green, gold foliage. All of that. So there's lots of those coming through as well. I think they're fab because they give such an extended season of interest, and it's better than your normal green foliage shrubs as well. So loads of cool stuff coming around.
Very cool. Very cool. What
you went to a show as well, didn't you, in the US?
I went to the Atlanta Spring Fair. It was all kind of home and garden. It was pretty cool. It was good to see kind of what's going on out here in gardening. And I met the team from Veggiepod. So Veggiepod obviously sponsored Series 2, so that was really cool to catch up with them. And I met Simon, who we interviewed in Sydney for the last series. So I met him in Atlanta, and Tim, who runs the US side as well. And then we went out for drinks and pizza in the evening too. So we had a really good time. Yeah, it was really good. Really nice to see them.
How racy.
Do you know what? I thought the show was really good. It was massive. It was...
Any new plants there or products that caught your eye?
No. I think that's the only show I've been here, to, and I'm going to another one in a couple of weeks, actually, here in Charlotte. And I just think in the UK, we nail gardening shows. We absolutely nail it. Do you know what I mean? And so the expectation is super high, But there was some cool stuff there, and people are very passionate about gardening here.
That's cool.
Yeah.
But I remember I went to Cultivate in Ohio a few years ago.
Yeah.
And it was a lovely show, and the people were super friendly, and they're great at kind of making connections and such. I remember, in UK, people are quite shy if they recognise you from online or something like that. But in the US, they're kind of bounding straight up to you and kind of like, oh, hi.
You want to chat.
Yeah. It's really nice. And I remember seeing a lot of new products that were also in Europe, but it was a bit misleading for me, because if there was new plants at an American show, they wouldn't be available to me in the UK anyway. Yeah. And sometimes it would be obviously for a slightly different climate, because lovely warm summers in a lot of America, you can grow the things like the foliage ipomea, all of that lovely stuff that we can't grow in the lower light levels of UK. So it doesn't always translate, but it's a fun place to make connections.
Very much so. And I'm so excited about some of the stuff I'm going to be able to grow on my balcony this year here in the US. Cool. But it does mean that my husband's going to have to learn to look after them too. So it will be an interesting experience.
Cool.
So yes.
But you'll be doing some talks this year as well. You got quite a few bookings for well-being and such.
Quite a few plants and nature for well-being talks.
Cool.
So all the ones I can think of coming up first of all, because now I'm back and forward, I can't seem to work further than about 4 weeks ahead of myself. I know. I have to learn what this kind of travel thing is like without having a home in the UK.
Well, you book stuff in the future, and you have to know a rough, sketchy outline. But I would work the same as you, with 4 weeks in advance on a more intense basis. Yeah,
exactly that. So
it's kind of cool, isn't it?
I'm just embracing it. It's I'm just gonna go with it, and see what happens. Just see what happens. Cool. As long as I've got my allotment in the UK, all is well. Talks at RHS Hyde Hall. We're doing a talk together as well in April.
Oh gosh, yeah, we are.
I don't know if we can announce what it is yet, but early April we'll be at RHS show.
That's really exciting.
Yeah, so that'll be really cool. And I'm also doing Country Living Fair at Alexandra Palace. And
that's cool.
Yeah, it was going to be a competition for winning what I'm going to make on the stage. I'm making a spring posy for indoors on the Country Living stage, and then I'm planting up a spring container on the Good Life Theatre, and they're both going to be available to win. And
you're pretty cool.
Yeah, that's really cool. But the point of it all is our connection with nature and the well-being benefits of working with plants. So we're going to talk through all of that as I'm planting up and making the posies. So that'd be cool. That'd be fun.
Nice.
Yeah. What about you?
I've got a new presentation which is an offshoot of the Weird and Wacky Plant Show, which is Rude Botany.
Yeah.
So this is going to be all that racy stuff that you've seen, because we did the test of that, and I was going to look Forbidden World of Plants at that stage, but I'm actually going to brand it Rude Botany along with the t-shirts and all of that stuff.
Yeah, I think that's
so.
Good.
Yeah, it's kind of plants that, I don't know, smell of spunk. Have.
Oh my God! You said that word again. You said the word again. You came to No Fear Gardening and just shocked me when you were like, "Oh yeah, and this smells like spunk," and I was like, "Oh my God! You just said that in a room full of people." But everybody loved it. It was such good fun. It was so good.
You've always got to push the boundaries.
Yeah.
Ellen.
You do, and you did, and it was very, very good. So yeah, anyone listening to that will really enjoy it, I'm sure.
Oh, that's wonderful.
I just have a question. Oh no, sorry, carry on. You've got more.
No, I had nothing to say. It was just filler.
Oh, it was just filler. I can do a filler for you. Are you planning on getting out of bed today?
Yes, I came back into bed for you, as it were.
Because it's like, what, 5 o'clock there?
I had to be in a perfect recording space. That's why I'm here.
You were concerned about the acoustics, were you? Not the comfort of the bed.
I didn't need a side dish of your judgment.
You're always going to get that.
Look, I've been on Skype with you for 47 minutes. That is at least 37 minutes too long.
Oh, yeah, I've had enough of you already. I'm going to see you way too much in a couple of weeks anyway.
Oh, sweet girl. Maybe we need to push the button on this gossip so that we can talk about the racy stuff.
Okay, yeah, let's go. Bye, everyone.
Yeah. Have you heard about so-and-so? Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Plant-Based Podcast.
Have a browse of the rest of the library or hop on over to the website, which is theplantbasedpodcast.net.
You'll also find our social media links. Please connect with us and let us know about any plant-based projects that you think we should be covering on the show.
And make sure you subscribe to our podcast so you'll be the first to hear the next episode. We're releasing once a fortnight. So until next time, enjoy the world of plants.